Today is on the Buddhist prophecy. It's Gosha number 43 from the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, volume 1. You with me? Page 398. And it says as the title, it says on the Buddhist prophecy composed by the Shramana Nichiren. Who can tell me what that meant? Why did he wrote composed by the Shramana of Nichiren? Pardon me, the Shramana Nichiren.
It looks like a poem.
No,
music?
Shramana doesn't have anything to do with poetry or prose. What would Shramana mean? If he's declaring himself the Shramana, composed by the Shramana Nichiren, he's also, you should have remember having seen this many times. He says he calls himself the Shramana of Japan. If he writes this at the beginning of a Gosho, pay attention to that Gosho. Always. That's like a okay, because Shramana means seeker of the way. Seeker of the way. Seeker to Buddhahood. You know, he's already attained Buddhahood, but this is to qualify that he's not a casual teacher, and that the writing that he's about to leave is very broad, is very profound, and should be held closely by anybody who follows him as a believer. Okay? Do we all consider ourselves followers of Nichiren?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, okay. So we should always take that kind of letter seriously, and this is one of them. On the Buddhist prophecy, page 398, composed by the Shramana Nichiren. The 7th volume of the Lotus Sutra states, after I have passed into extinction in the last 500-year period, you must spread it, the Lotus Sutra, abroad widely throughout Jampadvipa and never allow it to be cut off. On the one hand, it is deplorable to me that more than 2,200 years have already passed since the Buddha's demise. What evil karma prevented me from being born in this lifetime? Why couldn't I not have seen the 4 ranks of sages in the former day of the law, or Tentai and Dengyo in the middle day of the law? On the other hand, I rejoice at whatever good fortune enabled me to be reborn in the last 500-year period and to read these true words of the sutra. Now, what did he just say there?
Why?
And what was his point in making those comments? First, he qualifies what the sutra says, right? He says, the sutra says, after I have passed into extinction, in the last 500-year period, you must spread it abroad widely throughout Jampadvipa and never allow it to be cut off. So the first thing is what the sutra says, which is that the law that has been referred to but not revealed in the Buddhism of the harvest should be sustained and nurtured and protected through the former and the middle day. Okay? And be spread widely through Jampadvipa without being cut off. And then he says, on the one hand, it is deplorable to me that more than 2,220 years have already passed since the Buddha's demise, okay? Since this point in time that is referred to in that previous sentence, okay? He says, what evil prevented me from being born in this lifetime so that I could have done something like the Buddha suggested? That's what he's saying, right? He says, he's lamenting further, why could not I have seen the 4 ranks of sages in the former day of the law? Okay? Like Ashvagosha, Nagarjuna, and so forth, right? Or Tentai and Dengyo of the middle day of the law. He's saying, so what shitty karma I have that I wasn't around at Shakyamuni's time to hear him say anything. Okay? I'm already here in the 5th half millennium when his teaching has has lost its power, and yet I didn't even get to spend time as a disciple of Tentai or Dengyo or Ashvagosha or Nagarjuna. What a drag! I've been born in the middle day of in the latter day of the law. He goes, however, I do rejoice when I consider that in the absence of all that, at least I've been born in the 5th 500-year period when Shakyamuni said the shit's gonna go down. Do you understand what he's saying? Do you understand his spirit? His spirit is that, again, while all of these other things have preceded me, the greatest thing yet has not yet occurred. And I happen to be here just at the time of the greatest thing yet. So I have nothing to lament. Do you understand? That's
Yes.
what he was setting that whole paragraph out. He's going now, like, for instance, if I had been born in the Buddha's lifetime, okay, with 2,000 years ago and before that, it would have served no purpose for those who embraced the four flavors of teachings had not yet heard of the Lotus Sutra. Right? Again, my being born in either the former or the middle day of the law would have been meaningless, for neither the scholars of the three schools of the south or the seven schools of the north in China, nor those of any flower garden of the flower garland, True Word, or any other schools believed in the Lotus Sutra. Everybody's with me? Do you understand the point he's making? Okay. He's saying the great teacher Tiantai in the states, in the last 500-year period, the mystic way will spread and benefit humankind into the future. So he says, Tiantai said that, and here we're in that period. What am I doing? Does this not describe the time of widespread propagation that is now? The great teacher Dingyo says, the former and middle days are almost over, and the latter day is near at hand. These words reveal how much he longed for the beginning of the latter day of the law that I'm living in, Nichiren's writing. If we consider the rewards of living in the different ages, it is clear that mine surpass those of Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, and excel even those of Tiantai and Dingyo. Question: you are not the only person living in this last 500-year period. Why are you now so overjoyed to be living? Why are you in particular so overjoyed to be living now? Answer: the fourth volume of the Lotus Sutra reads, since hatred and jealousy abound this sutra, hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound even when the thus come one is in the world, how much more so will this be after its passing? The great teacher Tiantai states, it will be much worse in the future. In the future time, because the principles of the Lotus Sutra are so hard to teach. The great teacher Miolo explains, the purpose of the phrase, the principles are so hard to teach, is to let us know how hard it is to enable people to understand these principles. Is everybody with me? These are all statements of fact of this moment. The Dharma teacher Chiu Tu states, and he was a disciple of Miolo. It is said that good medicine tastes bitter. This sutra, which is like good medicine, dispels attachments. Dispels attachments to the five vehicles and establishes the one ultimate principle. It reproaches those in the ranks of ordinary beings and censures those in the ranks of sagehood, denies provisional Mahayana, and refutes Hinayana. That is why all these types of people try to make hindrances for a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra. The great teacher Dingyo states, speaking of the age, the propagation of the true teaching will begin in the age when the middle day of the law ends and the latter day opens. Anytime within the fifth 500-year period, right? Regarding the land, it will begin in a land to the east of Tang and to the west of Katsu, which is where Japan is roughly. As for the people, it will spread among people stained by the five impurities who live in a time of conflict. That's my favorite part. Who would that describe? As for the people, it will spread among people stained by the five impurities who live in a time of conflict. What are the five impurities? I got a mark for you. They're very simple. The five impurities are impurities of the age, of desire, of living beings, of view, and of life itself. Okay, so it will spread among people stained by the 5 impurities. Says what? Who will live in an age of in a time of conflict. This is a time of conflict, I would say, to say lightly. Okay, who are the people that are stained by the 5 impurities? Us. Us. Not pure white bodhisattvas floating down from the sky. Us, who have all of the things that make us human. All of the 9 worlds residing within us. He says, okay, as for the people, it will spread among people stained by the 5 impurities who live at a time of conflict. The sutra says, since hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound, even when the thus come one is in the world, how much more will this be so after his passing? There is good reason for this statement. The great teacher Dingyo seems to be describing his own day, but actually he is referring to our present. So he's saying all of those things about the hatred and jealousy being even greater actually reflect the time that he's in Kamakura, right? His words, the former and middle days are almost over and the latter day is near at hand, have just such a meaning. The sutra states, evil devils, the devil's people, heavenly beings, dragons, yakshas, kumbanda demons, and others will seize the advantage. Another part of the sutra details these others, whether it be a yaksha or a raksha, or a hungry spirit, or a putana, or a kritya, or a vetara, or a skanda, or an maraka, or an aspamaraka, or a yaksha krita, or a human krita. Ooh, the human kritas are the worst ones.
Looks like
These
creatures.
passages explain that those who in previous lifetimes embraced the 4 flavors and the 3 teachings, non-doctrine Buddhist teachings, or doctrines concerning the realms of human and heavenly beings, appear in this life as devils, or heavenly or human beings, who persecute the votary of the true and perfect teaching when they see or hear him. Top of page 399. Question. In comparing the former and the middle day of the law, the first 2 were far superior in terms of both time and the people's capacity. Why do these factors of time and capacity, ignored in the Lotus Sutra, which referred exclusively to this age? Answer. Everybody's with me? Mm-hmm. In comparing the former and the middle days of the law, the 2 were far superior in terms of both time and people's capacity. Why are these factors of time and capacity ignored in the Lotus Sutra, refers exclusively to this age? Does everybody, what did that just say then, if you do understand that?
It's the right time.
If the Lotus Sutra, okay, in the former and the middle of the day, we had who? No, Shakyamuni's gone.
Yeah.
Former and middle of the day. He's just mentioned a minute ago. He's saying, like, we had Ashvagosha, we had Nagarjuna, we had Vasubandhu, we had Tiantai, we had Nyolo, we had Dengyo, we had all these super capable people as it relates to the Lotus Sutra during a time when the sutra could be propagated by people that were capable of understanding and giving a correct perception of it as a teaching. And he's saying, but the sutra itself focuses not on people that could be born in the former and the middle day. It focuses almost exclusively on these people of the latter day. And these people of the latter day aren't really great quality individual humans, right? They're stained by the 5 impurities. They're not perfect. They're not religious entities. They're not bodhisattvas, right? They're not heavenly beings. So, here's your answer. Answer. The Buddha's intent is difficult to fathom. Indeed, I am unable to grasp it. We may attempt to understand, however, by taking the Hinayana Sutras as a point of reference, during the 1,000 years of the former day of the law, Hinayana was fully endowed with the 3 elements of teaching, practice, and proof. Now here's your answer. This is your real answer. Pay attention. Take note of what he's saying. Why is it us? Why didn't it happen to those other great scholars preceding us? Okay? During the 1,000 years of the middle day teaching and practice alone remained. Proof no longer existed. Nobody could achieve Buddhahood, right?
Right.
In the latter day of the law, teaching alone remains. Neither practice nor proof exists as far as the Lotus Sutra is concerned. You understand? He's not talking about the Buddhism of sowing. He's explaining about this chapter from the Buddhism of the Harvest, right? You understand? So he's saying, now you might have a teaching and a practice, but there's no proof. There's no actual proof of the power of the teaching. You don't get benefit from practicing the Lotus Sutra in the latter day of the law. You get benefit from practicing the Buddhism of sowing in the latter day of the law, with a completely different teacher and a completely different teaching. On examining this from the standpoint of the Lotus Sutra, the Buddhism of the Harvest, we find that in the 1,000 years of the former day of the law, persons who possessed all three had most probably formed ties with the Lotus Sutra during the Buddha's lifetime. They were born again in the former day and were able to obtain the proof of Hinayana through its teachings and practice. Those born in the middle day had not yet developed strong ties to the Lotus Sutra during the Buddha's lifetime, and were therefore unable to attain proof through Hinayana. So they was Hinayana out in the middle day? No, Mahayana only got its foothold. Okay? So those people that had to groove on Tentai and Dengyo, they had to wait until the middle day. That's what he's saying here. The good guys, really smart guys, they could take the Hinayana Buddhist, its text, and actually attain Buddhahood through them. Okay, so they made their advent in the former day. But then the ones that weren't quite as sharp were born in the middle day. Still disciples of the Buddha, though, and Shakyamuni. They turned instead to provisional Mahayana, which was the teaching of the middle day, right? And they were able to be born in the pure land of the 10th direction. They were to attain Buddhahood. In the latter day of the law, no benefit is derived from either Mahayana or Hinayana. That's a very strong statement to make, but do understand that he makes it very clearly there. In the latter day of the law, there is no benefit derived from either Mahayana or Hinayana. Hinayana retains nothing but its teaching, and it has neither practice nor proof. Mahayana still has its teaching and practice, but no longer provides any proof of any benefit, either conspicuous or inconspicuous. Furthermore, the schools of Hinayana and provisional Mahayana, established during the former and middle days of the law, cling all the more stubbornly to their doctrines as they enter the latter day, in which the teaching is said, discard those teachings, right? Those who espouse Hinayana reject Mahayana, and those who espouse provisional teachings attack the true teaching until the country is overrun with slanderers of the law. Those who fall into the evil paths because of their mistaken practice of Buddhism outnumber the dust particles of the land. Pardon me. While those who attain Buddhahood who attain the Buddha way by practicing the correct teaching are fewer than the specks of dirt that can be placed on a fingernail. At such a time, the heavenly gods and benevolent deities abandon the country and only perverse heavenly beings and perverse demons remain, possessing the minds and bodies of the ruler, his subjects and monks and nuns, causing them to curse, revile, and heap shame on the votary of the Lotus Sutra. If, however, in the time after the Buddha's passing, a person renounces his attachments to the four flavors and three teachings and converts to faith in the Lotus Sutra that is true Mahayana And, okay, now what's he talking about there?
True Mahayana.
Yeah, but no, what is true Mahayana? What is true Mahayana? We're in the latter day of law. He says, because he just now talked about, at such a time, da da da. However, if in the time after the Buddha's passing, a person renounces his attachments to the four flavors and three teachings and converts to faith in the Lotus Sutra that is true Mahayana, the heavenly gods and the benevolent deities, as well as the bodhisattvas numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds who emerge from beneath the earth, will protect him as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. Under their protection, he will establish and spread abroad widely throughout Jampadvipa the object of devotion of the essential teaching, or the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo. So who's he talking about? He says, okay, so all of this that I just talked about, no practice, no proof, right, exists. He says, if, however, in the time such as now, a person who has renounced his attachments to the 4 flavors and the 3 teachings. What's the 4 flavors and the 3 teachings? Provisional Buddhism. He's renounced the expedient means, okay? And converts to faith in the Lotus Sutra that is true Mahayana, which is really predicated on the Lotus Sutra itself and is specifically the teaching of the latter half of the 16th chapter, right? Where hidden in the depths, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo exists. That's what he's talking about now. If there's a person that could practice correctly, then the heavenly gods and benevolent deities, as well as the bodhisattvas of the earth, will appear. Okay. What's he saying there? The heavenly gods and benevolent deities, as we have on the Gohonzon, as well as the bodhisattvas numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds who emerge from the ground, will protect him, the teacher, the correct teacher, for the period of the 5th half millennium and thereafter. Do you understand? Saying under their protection, he, the teacher, will establish and spread abroad widely throughout the entire world the object of devotion of the essential teaching, the Gohonzon, of the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo. Everybody's with me, what he just said there, right? Okay, so now, bottom of page 400. It was the same with Bodhisattva Never Disparaging, who lived in the middle day of the law of the Buddha Awesome Sound King. He propagated widely throughout his land the teachings of the 24 characters that begins, I have profound reverence for you, and was attacked with sticks of wood by the whole population. Now, does anybody remember what the profound reference that Daishonin has made to the 24 character teaching of Bodhisattva Never Disparaging? He qualifies that as equal to what? Everybody, nobody's, remember? He qualifies it as the same as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. He says the spirit of what is said in those 24 characters is the same spirit that's contained within the Daimoku. Okay? So he's saying,
24 characters.
yeah, okay. Do you know
In
the
Chinese
24 characters?
Chinese
I would never disparage you. I will always have profound reverence for you. Why? It's because you seek the Bodhisattva way, and therefore you will someday be a Buddha. He says so in the encouraging, or the Bodhisattva Never Disparaging chapter of the Lotus Sutra. I'll show you a minute ago. It's not the same. There's 2 things. Like the 20-verse line is significant because that's the 20-verse line that the Bodhisattvas made to uphold the vow to spread the teaching after the Buddha's passing, right? That's the one where they're going to be cruel to us and mock us and surely you're all Buddhas. My favorite line from there. Okay, that's one of those things you have to kind of cut out as a cutout. The other one is the 24 character. He actually calls it the 24 character Lotus Sutra.
Yep.
He says that in that 24 characters, the entire essence of the Lotus Sutra is conveyed. which is the deep, deep, deep respect for all people regardless of who they are, and the fearlessness in that belief so that you constantly are endeavoring to save them. And through never giving up in that process, that's where true salvation comes from.
24 characters.
I'll show you in the dictionary in just a moment. Okay, so he says, it is the same with Bodhisattva never disparaging, who lived in the middle day of the law of the Buddha awesome Sound King. This is the story in that chapter that tells how he came about going through this experience. He propagated widely throughout his land the teaching of 24 characters that begins, I have profound reverence for you, which that I shown in is qualified as the equivalent of the Lotus Sutra, right? And was attacked with sticks of wood by the whole population. Everybody he tried saying, oh, you're the Buddha, they would kick his ass. Okay? And he would run and then say it again. As soon as he's far enough away for them not to hurt him, he'd turn around. But you are Buddha's exact. I love this guy. Okay? Which is that spirit that ultimately led him to Buddhahood, because it wore his ass out. Okay? This got real old, real fast, real long, and he never stopped. He says, the 24 character never disparaging chapter and the 5 character, oh, here it says it right here in this Gosho. The 24 characters chapter of never disparaging, the 24 characters of never disparaging, and the 5 characters of Nichiren are different in wording, but accord with the same principle. The end of the Buddha Awesome Sound King's middle day and the beginning of his latter day of the law are exactly the same in method of conversion. What's method of conversion? Method of conversion is from Awesome Sound King's time. Has just been displayed by never disparaging, and we already know what the 5th half millennium and beyond, what Buddhism is sowing, calls for. So what's he say? It says they call for the same method of conversion. What's that mean? Don't lose this. This is the part where you can, because you won't even hit this. You won't even see this if I don't bring it out.
Same principle, same
Nope, not principle. What is never disparaging doing when he's yelling and doing what he's doing?
You are a Buddha.
Huh?
You are a Buddha.
Yeah. But how's he saying it? Is he doing shoji or shakabuku?
It's shakubu.
Totally shakabuku. Shakabuku to the max. In their face, I'm not waiting for a convenient little time to touch your hand and serve you some tea and tell you a nice story. I'm screaming out the truth, and it's pissing you off to the point you're trying to hit me with rocks, and I don't care. I'm just running out of the distance and saying it again. Okay? And he's saying the method of conversion is the same. Understand? So what he's conveying is, how do we tell these people the truth? We tell them the truth, and we take the hit for telling the truth. We don't worry about the hit we're going to get for telling the truth. We worry about telling the truth. Do you understand? That's what he's saying. He's saying that they are exact. The method of conversion are exactly the same. Never disparaging was a practitioner at the initial stage of rejoicing. Okay? And that's from the 5 stages from Tentai, right? Nichiren is an ordinary person at the stage of hearing the name and the words of the truth. We know that's from his 6 stages, right?
Yes.
Right? What's the common thing about both of those stages? They're the same. They're the same stages. Okay? The stage that's missing in the 5 of Shakyamuni versus the 6 of Nichiren is the first stage of being a Buddha in theory. Okay? So this is hearing the name and the words of the truth. Question: how can you be certain you are the votary of the Lotus Sutra prophesied to appear at the beginning of the latter day of the law? Straight up, the question is asked: how can you be sure? Hey, you're saying you're all that in a bag of chips. On what basis? Nichiren answers: the Lotus Sutra states, since hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound even when the thus come one is in the world, how much more will this be so after his passing? Another passage reads, there will be many ignorant people who will speak ill of us and who will attack us with swords and staves. A third passage says, again and again we will be banished. A fourth passage reads, it is the Lotus Sutra will face much hostility. The Lotus Sutra will face much hostility in the world and be difficult to believe. A fifth reads, some among the group would take sticks of wood or tiles and stones and beat and pelt him. A sixth reads, evil devils, the devil's people, heavenly beings, dragons, yakshas, kumbanda demons, and others will seize the advantage that the people might believe in the Buddha's words. I have held up the bright mirror of these scriptures packs, that the people might believe in the Buddha's words. I have held up the bright mirror of these scriptural passages before the ruler, his subjects, and the four categories of Buddhists throughout Japan. But I can find none other than myself who has lived these passages. As for the time, now is most certainly the beginning of the latter day of the law. But had Nichiren not appeared, the Buddha's words would be false. In other words, I'm the only one that has fulfilled the prophecy. Okay? And I have brought this to the attention of everyone that I can get to pay attention, and nobody can come up with any answer that proves it false. Okay, so my assertion, based on your answer, what makes you be such a badass, is I fulfilled all the prophecies of the sutra. Question then. Wow, so you fulfilled all the prophecies. Woo! You are an extremely arrogant priest. This is that I've shown in injecting, because he knows if he says this, if he says, I'm the Buddha of the latter day of the law, these are big statements to make. He's going to be automatically attacked. He should go ahead and inject an answer to the attack that he knows is coming. Question. You are an extremely arrogant priest, even more arrogant than Mahadeva or Sunshatra. Is this not so? Answer. Insulting Nichiren, I love this because this applies to each of you too. When they say that you're arrogant, when they say that you're not entitled to take these positions, and they're all based on the sutra, he says, answer, insulting Nichiren is an offense even greater than those of Devadatta or Vilamavitra. My words may sound arrogant, but my sole purpose is to fill the Buddha's predictions and reveal the truth of his words. In all Japan, who but Nichiren can be called the votary of the Lotus Sutra? By denouncing Nichiren, you would make lies of the Buddha's prophecies. Are you not an extremely evil man? Question. You certainly fit the thus come one's prophecies. But are there not perhaps other votaries of the Lotus Sutra in the 5 regions of India or the land of China? His answer is, throughout the 4 continents of the world, there are surely not 2 suns. So within the 4 seas, how can there be 2 rulers? And that's definitively again stating, no, it's me. Question, on what basis do you say that? Answer, the moon appears in the west and sheds its light eastward, but the sun rises in the east and casts its rays to the west. The same is true of Buddhism. It spread from west to east in the former and middle days of the law, but will travel from east to west in the latter day. The great teacher Myolo says, does this not mean that Buddhism has been lost in Japan, in the country of its origin, and must now be sought in the surrounding regions? Thus, no Buddhism is found in India anymore. During the 150 years or so since barbarians from the north invaded the eastern capital in the time of Emperor Kōtsun, both Buddhism and imperial authority became extinct in China. Concerning the collection of scriptures kept in China, not one Hinayana Sutra remains, and most Mahayana Sutras have also been lost. Even when Jakusho and other priests set out from Japan to take some sutras to China, no one was found there who could embrace these sutras and teach them to others. They're too complicated. It was as though there were only wooden or stone statues garbed in priest robes and carrying begging bowls. That is why Tunshi said Buddhism, came first from the west like the moon appearing. Now it is returning from the east like the sun rising. These remarks make it clear that Buddhism is lost in both India and China. Question: I can now see no Buddhism exists in either India or China. But how do you know no Buddhism exists in the other three continents, in the east, west, and north? The answer: the 8th volume of the Lotus Sutra reads, after the Thus Come One has entered extinction, and it will cause the Lotus Sutra to be widely propagated throughout Jampadvipa, and we'll see that it never comes to an end. The words throughout Jampadvipa indicate that the other three continents are excluded. Question: I have seen that the Buddha's prophecy applies to you. Now, what do you yourself predict? Answer: in light of the Buddha's prophecy, the last 500-year period has already begun. I say that, without fail, Buddhism will arise and flow forth from the east, from the land of Japan. Omens will occur in the form of unusual disturbances in the heavens and terrible calamities on earth that will be greater in magnitude than ever before witnessed in the former and the middle day of the law. When the Buddha was born, when he turned the wheel of the law, and also when he entered nirvana, the omens, both auspicious and inauspicious, were greater than they were ever observed. The Buddha is the teacher of all ages. The sutras describe how, at the time of his birth, light shone forth in 5 colors in all directions, and the night became as bright as noon. At the time of his passing, 12 white arcs crossed the sky from north to south. The sun's light was extinguished, and the day became as dark as midnight. There followed the 2,000 years of the former and middle days of the law. Sages, some Buddhists and some not, were born and died, but never were there any omens of such magnitude. From the beginning of the Shoka era through this year, however, tremendous earthquakes and extraordinary phenomena in the heavens have occurred, exactly like the signs that were marked by the Buddha's birth and death. You should know that from this, that a sage like the Buddha has been born. A great comet crossed the sky, but for which ruler or subject did this omen appear? The earth tilted, and gaping fissures opened 3 times, but for which sage or worthy did this occur? You should realize that these great omens, both good and bad, are of no ordinary secular significance. They are signs that the teachings of the supreme law are ascending, and that the other teachings are in decline. Tentai states, by observing the fury of the rain, we can tell the greatness of the dragon that caused it, and by observing the flourishing of the lotus flowers, we can tell the depth of the pond they grow in. Mielo says, wise men can perceive the cause of things as snakes know the way of snakes. 21 years have gone by since I, Nichiren, understood this principle and began propagation. During this period, I have suffered difficulties day after day and month after month. In the last 2 or 3 years, among the other things, I was almost put to death. The chances are 1 in 10,000 that I will survive the year or even the month. If anyone questions these things, let these persons ask my disciples for details. What fortune is mine to expiate in one lifetime the offenses of slandering the law I have accumulated from the infinite past? How delighted I am to serve Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, whom I have never seen. I pray that before anything else I can guide and lead the ruler and those others who persecuted me. I will tell the Buddha about all the disciples who have aided me, and before I die I will transfer the great blessings of deriving from my practice to my parents who gave me life. Now, as if in a dream, I understand the heart of the Treasure Tower chapter. As the sutra states, if you were to seize Mount Sumeru and fling it far off to the measureless Buddha lands, that too would not be difficult. But if after the Buddha has entered extinction in the time of evil, you can preach this sutra, that will be indeed difficult. The great teacher Dingyo says, Shakyamuni taught that the shallow is easy to embrace, but the profound is difficult. To discard the shallow and to seek the profound is the way of a person of courage. The great teacher Tentai trusted and obeyed Shakyamuni and worked to uphold the Lotus School, spreading its teachings throughout China. We of Mount Hei inherited the doctrine from Tentai and worked to uphold the Lotus School and to disseminate its teachings throughout Japan. I, Nichiren of Awa Province, have doubtless inherited these teachings of the law from these three teachers. And in this era of the latter day, I work to uphold the Lotus School and disseminate the law. Together, we should be called the four teachers of the three countries. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, written by Nichiren the Shramana of Japan on the 11th day of the intercalary month, 5th month of the 10th year of Brunei, with the cyclical sign of Mizunoto Tori. And I spaced out on reading the background first, so I'll fill in by doing that. Background on the Buddha's prophecy. Nichiren Daishonin was 52 years old when he wrote this letter during his exile at Ichinosawa on the island of Sado in 1273. It is addressed to his disciples and lay supporters in general. The title on the Buddha's prophecy points to two prophecies. One is Shakyamuni Buddha's prediction that the votary of the Lotus Sutra will appear at the beginning of the latter day of the law, himself, and spread the sutra's teachings despite great persecutions. The other is the Daishonin's own prophecy that in the latter day and on into the eternal future, his teachings will spread throughout the world to benefit humankind. This letter can be divided into 7 sections according to content. 1. Nichiren Daishonin relates that it is a greater blessing to be reborn in the latter day of the law and to have faith in the Lotus Sutra, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, than to have met Shakyamuni Buddha or the great sages who appeared in the former and middle days of the law. 2. He cites statements and prophecies made by Shakyamuni and other Buddhist teachers concerning the latter day of the law, the greatness of the Lotus Sutra, and the persecutions that will surely befall its votary. 3. He outlines the decline of Shakyamuni's Buddhism and proclaims that the correct teaching of Buddhism will spread throughout the world of the latter day of the law. He identified, and also he qualifies in that, he says the decline of Shakyamuni's Buddhism, okay, and versus the correct teaching of Buddhism. He identifies himself as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. That is the Buddha of the latter day of the law. 5. He shows that Buddhism is no longer alive in India or China, and that the correct teaching, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, of Buddhism will arise in the eastern land of Japan. 6. He expounds on his prophecy by comparing the omens that have appeared in his age with those that appeared in Shakyamuni's. And 7. He declares that the supreme law is now arising and warns his followers that carrying out widespread propagation will be difficult. And then we'll continue next week with President Ikeda's lecture, and it's more specifically focused, rather than on the whole Gosho, it's on this section, on the Buddhist prophecy. So the sections that we'll be reading are smaller in size than we just read in reading the whole Gosho. So see you next week. Thank you very much. Have a great holiday.
Thank you.
Bye.